Colorado voters and our legislature have the opportunity, actually an obligation, to periodically review the needs of our veterans, especially those most disabled, to ease the impact of their line of duty injuries. It's been 15 years since Colorado made the last small improvement in disabled vets' benefits, and that was just a small partial property tax exemption. 15 years of unending wars, escalating house values, steady inflation, and these recent years of pandemics have increased the needs of our vets while cutting away most of the value of their benefits and protections. Although we advertise that we're veteran-friendly, Colorado ranks only a middling 27th among the states ranking of veterans' benefits, and our only significant benefit is that small partial property tax exemption restricted to totally and permanently disabled veterans. Our property tax exemption dates from the year 2000, when the legislature sent us Referendum A, and in 2006 they sent us Referendum E to add as an amendment to the Constitution. Although the property tax exemption is the most significant benefit for our disabled vets, it's only partial, giving an annual savings of around $600. Let's note that 19 other states provide a total property tax relief to their disabled vets. The most recent analysis of the Veteran and Senior Property Tax Exemption Program showed that it totaled over $155 million in cost, and the veterans' share of that was just under 2% for all of the disabled vets and their survivors. As you might expect, with veterans being somewhat older than the average citizen, about 13% of Colorado's disabled vets are also eligible for the senior exemption, although they have to choose just one. And survivors of both veteran and senior recipients can continue the exemption as long as they own and reside in their residence. What was the genesis of this program? In 2006, Referendum E and the enabling legislation were grouped in with the senior homestead exemption that started back in 2000. Referendum E qualified, and I'm emphasizing the words here, any veteran who is 100% permanently disabled. Voters overwhelmingly approved this new program. Now here your attention is drawn to those particular words, any and 100%. They're important words with clear meaning, words we voted for, and words that might play a role in someday providing a solution. The word 100% brings us to the program's problem area. You see, VA actually has two separate but equal categories for veterans who are completely and permanently disabled. The first is the best known, for vets who are rated by VA as 100% permanently and totally disabled, the words in the new amendment. And VA's second category is where we have the result of the exemption language. VA calls this category TDIU, for total disability for individual unemployability. It's got nothing to do with being out of work. It has to do with not being able to work because of service-connected disabilities. Both categories have as their basis the vet's line of duty injuries that completely and permanently prevent working any longer. But not every wound or disease is the same for every veteran. Some are worse than would be typical. The 100% category VA has uses standard tables for injuries, let's say 70% for a shoulder wound, or 100% for prostate cancer. For vets who have injuries much worse than typical, beyond the scope of the charts, whose, let's say, shoulder wound is actually completely disabling, VA has TDIU. TDIU is an actual assessment by VA that a particular veteran's injury or disease is worse than standard tables anticipate, and actually prevents the possibility of the veteran ever working again. TDIU, then, we've got to look at it for the problems that arise and to see how Colorado has created an unnecessary, illogical, and unfair distinction between TDIU and 100%, and then use that distinction to refuse TDIU vets any property tax exemption. Our problem is, you see, VA and Colorado don't see the same way on these two categories. VA considers the two categories the same. 100% equals total. Total equals 100%. But somehow not here in Colorado. Our state considers them differently than does VA, even though Colorado has a law that is supposed to align our veterans' issues with those terms and rules set up by the VA. It makes no sense. Since when is the total of something not 100%? Or when is 100% of something not also the total of it? That weird distinction is used only here in Colorado. Hanging on a non-existent difference between the words, Colorado accepts the VA 100% rating, but not the VA total TDIU rating. Looking through a dictionary shows the two words are much the same. They're synonyms for each other, total and 100%. There's a powerful argument that when voters approved Referendum E and the use there of the words 100% and all, we also believed we were approving what would be total. Another law helps make this point. Colorado's statute that requires we look to the plain meaning of words. The plain meaning of total is 100%, and the total plain meaning of 100% is total. Making a distinction is foolishness. But Colorado qualifies 100% of rated VA veterans for a tax break while also denying it to VA TDIU veterans. For us to consider how our TDIU veterans should actually qualify under the exemption, it will help to see how identically VA treats TDIU and 100%. Here, the federal statute details the TDIU, total and permanent disability. You see, it is based on the totality of a veteran's inability to work, and that's kind of the language that was offered in the Blue Book describing Referendum E in 2006. In the same manner, VA defines the permanence of disability for TDIU. There's no need to load this presentation with extra verbiage, but Colorado and VA are separated by the smallest of details, small but important details. In the same manner, VA defines the permanence of the disability for a veteran to be rated TDIU. And again, extra terms, extra verbiage, but trying to explain the difference that VA and Colorado have made in this issue. To show again how identical these two disability classifications are within the federal government and why we shouldn't distinguish between them in Colorado, just look in the Code of Federal Regulations. Here's the definition of 100%, and in an identical way, VA defines TDIU here in the Federal Register. Two ways that VA categorizes the two categories of America's most disabled veterans with the identical end result. Denying TDIU veterans Colorado's very small property tax exemption has gone on since 2007. It's an unfairness that shouldn't stay with us any longer. The veterans of Colorado, represented by the United Veterans Coalition, are going to use their 460,000 voices to tell the legislature this needs fixing by 2023. There seems to be just two ways to get TDIU veterans the exemption benefits they should have received with Referendum E. First, the legislature can send a referendum to the people with language qualifying TDIU vets the same as 100% vets and create a new constitutional amendment. Second, the legislature could consider simply enacting a new law grouping TDIU vets with the definition of 100% vets. This might seem extra constitutional, but it's been done in the past. In 2014, the legislature added disabled veterans' surviving spouses to the exemption. This wasn't authorized in Article 10, Section 3.5 of the Constitution, but the legislature figured nobody would complain. And nobody has. So perhaps this legislative sleight of hand can help out again. Whenever there is new legislation proposed, the very first questions are always, how much will it cost and who's going to pay for it? At this point, there are two possible answers that we can see. The increased burden on the state would be about $2.7 million in the general budget. Or, as a worst case, this perhaps could be arranged by cutting the current exemption in half per recipient to cover the extra 4,800 veterans that might be qualified, thus making the exemption stretch out twice as far with the same budget impact. The United Veterans Coalition of Colorado has identified adding TDIU veterans as a 2022 legislative objective. UVC is made up of the principal veterans organizations, including VFW, DAV, the American Legion, Paralyzed Vets, Vietnam Vets, Blind Vets, Gold Star Wives, Jewish War Vets, Marine Corps League, Military Officer Association, NCO Officer Association, and others. And recently, the Colorado Bar Association has also endorsed the addition of TDIU veterans to the property tax exemption. Veterans, contact your state senator and state representative to voice your strong support. If you're serving as one of our state's senators or representatives, please make sure this problem finds a solution that both chambers can agree upon. If you have an organization that cares about veterans, issue a statement of support. Colorado's 460,000 veterans, particularly our 4,800 brothers and sisters who are totally and permanently disabled TDIU vets, need your endorsement and your active support in this effort. Our TDIU vets have a heavy lifetime burden of total disability from their line of duty injuries. Offering Colorado's totally disabled TDIU and 100% vets, both active duty and guard, the same small benefit is necessary, logical, and after 15 years, the right thing to do. What can you do to help? What ideas do you have that will help Colorado help our disabled veterans and their families? To learn more, or to offer your encouragement in any way, visit the United Veterans of Colorado at uvcoc.org.